Welcome into the Sources Say podcast, your go-to Kentucky basketball on the KSR Podcast Network, presented by Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. I am your host, Jack Pilgrim of Kentucky Sports Radio. Very excited to be joined once again by Sean Smith. Sean, how the heck are you, buddy?
I've been better, obviously. This is our therapy session here. We'll get through this. We'll figure it out over the next hour. I'm expecting a lot of activity in the chat on this one, and we've got to find a way to make this just an individual moment in the season and not lead to moments. And that's probably going to be the theme that I'm attacking this one with.
It is going to have to be just such a nuanced conversation where we can highlight the individual magnitude of the frustration of the moment with an understanding that in the grand scheme of things, it probably doesn't mean a whole lot in terms of probably dropped a seed line because of it. It's a quad 2 loss, depending on how things go. If you want, weirdly enough, you want Arkansas to start winning games and get back, potentially in that quad 1 factor, but you also don't want them to kind of use that game as their moment for the season and tail off and drop to a quad 3 loss. It can swing both directions. You hate that you take the quad 2. It's going to hurt you at some point, but it's not life and death. Kentucky has established one of the best resumes in college basketball. You want to wonder why in the heck we can go 6-1 in top 15 games and 1-5 in unranked Power 5 matchups, but we'll get through all that. We'll talk about it. You have every right to be frustrated about the individual moment and the build-up and what this game meant, while also just kind of taking a deep breath and understanding that things are big picture fine. And if you have Pope's not the guy and those types of grandiose takes, just sleep on it, take a deep breath, just don't just be looking for reasons for told you so's. Let's just kind of take this stuff in stride. But let's talk about the frustration and why the in-game frustration is deserved and why I think it was the first real slip-up of the Mark Pope era in terms of understanding the assignment. I wrote a column last night on KSR and, kind of ruffled some feathers with it. But I do think that the game meant more to Arkansas and John Calipari in fighting and clawing and chipping and doing whatever it was going to take to leave that game with a victory than it did for Kentucky and its players and the Kentucky coaching staff. It was treated as just another game for Kentucky, the biggest game of our lives, all those kind of talking points that they've been doing with Colgate and Brown and Lipscomb and go down the list. But I do think that there was a want it more on that Arkansas bench than Kentucky. And I think fans have the right to be frustrated with that, Sean. Would you agree with that assessment?
Fans have the right to be frustrated with any loss. That's part of being a fan. And with this one, just the outside factors that play into this, that Cal's back and former players on the other team that performed maybe better together last night than they did all of last season in individual moments. But that's the painful part of it if you're a Kentucky fan. But then again, you've got to look at this, and here's where I can't come on here and put too much into one, because I've said for weeks that this season, the key to the SEC schedule is you can't get too high with the highs and you can't get too low with the lows. Well, Arkansas just had its highest moment, and Kentucky has had its lowest moment. And now both teams are on different sides of this thing about how they regroup and how they move on forward. Arkansas's got to match that play moving forward. Mark Pope can't let this one individual moment become more than one moment, because they have lost 3 or 4. That's probably the bigger storyline here. It's not just the one. They've lost 3 or 4. They do have a great road win at Tennessee kind of sandwiched in between those things. But the next game's now the biggest game of the season. Bigger than what this one was.
Yeah, biggest game of their lives, Sean.
This one was personal, yes. And you have those games throughout the season. But Kentucky, I still think Kentucky is better equipped if they can get healthy to sustain success more so than what Arkansas had in an individual pocket of it last night. Arkansas's not had anything. John Calipari coached hard last night. You could tell he wanted it, the fist pumping, the reacting, like he had an energy to him. And I kept talking about the individual moments maybe being too much for Arkansas. Well, guess what? Those guys backed it up. They made shots, they made plays. Cal and that staff had them ready to play. In Kentucky, I think Mark Pope's in a situation here, Jack, with the rotation. He's playing freshmen that he didn't think he needed to rely on just 3 or 4 weeks ago. You've had injuries to your backcourt that has forced it. We know Andrew Carr is not 100%. That changes your rotation, and we'll get into what has to change moving forward. But in the end, it can be 40 minutes or it can be 80, 120. How do you regroup from this moment is probably the most important thing about this season to this point, because you have lost 3 or 4, and that's the bigger thing than losing the one last night.
Yeah, in kind of just looking at BBN and one of the copes that they had after it is, well, I mean, what can you do with, Arkansas shooting 55% from the field, 52% from 3, and 75%? They exceed all of their season averages. They come out firing. They come out again with an energy. I mean, they've scored 70 points in one SEC game up to this point and scored 89 in Rupp Arena. Defense disaster. We gotta address that. We gotta figure out what's going on there. But there were pockets and windows and opportunities for them where when it would get cut down to 6 in the second half, like you hated, and again, credit to Arkansas, and I would have been the first person to complain about the scouting and the preparation and the seriousness of the former Kentucky coaching staff now on that Arkansas bench. I have been the first person to throw my grenades at their game prep. I thought they were tremendous. I thought they were well coached. I thought their game plan was excellent. I thought their second half adjustment, wanting to kind of take away that first initial run that Kentucky's been so excellent at, to kind of build back the momentum. I mean, that's been Kentucky's sweet spot, and that was clearly priority number one for Arkansas, to just kind of take that away and make sure that, like, we're going to set the tone to start the second half. And that's where I just kind of thought things unraveled for Pope individually, where I think there was just kind of an expectation built up with this group that no matter what hole you dig, no matter where things stand, there's always going to be that run. And I think when the reality set in that, okay, we're down 11, we're down 12, and we hit a big 3 on one end, and then they respond back with the follow-up punch, and we're not chipping away. There's not that, like, okay, well, we got it down to 4 possessions. Now it's 3. Now it's 2. Now we're within striking distance. It kind of had that feel of panic. Like Pope just let the game slip away and didn't really have the answer. And I think that's where some of the lineups and the rotations were wonky. And I just really didn't like the messaging after the game, where there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda in a game that I think the fans they wanted. They didn't want to hear, well, we found ourselves in a situation where 3 of our guards were extremely tired on the floor at the same time, and that led to some slippage. Or, well, why didn't Trent Noah play? Yeah, we got to just, if we have to play him at the 3, we should play him at the 3 if we have to. We just got to get him on the floor. Well, why didn't you? There's always the gripes that we had about John Calipari with some of the woulda, coulda, shoulda. Well, I need to start playing my best players. Well, who's in charge of that? You are. I think there was a lot of that. I didn't have the answers stuff from Mark Pope there in the second half, and I think that's where the frustration from BBN is justified.
Well, you had 2 games this week that were complete opposites of scenarios here. You had a game in Knoxville where you got out to a great start. You did trail by 3 at the half, but then you get an early lead, and you're playing with the lead the entire second half. On the flip side of this, Arkansas takes the lead late first, and then you just don't get it back. And then the deficit, it went from 6 around 14 and a half minutes, 15 minutes. Oweh gets a dunk, and then I think Garrison missed a 3. DJ Wagner hits a 3, and then Carter Knox gets a dunk in transition. Then the thing goes to 12 or to 11 or 12, somewhere through there. So it kind of goes, and now you're in double figure deficit, and you're starting, and Kobe Brea's not making shots. You're struggling defensively. that's where you can kind of get off balance when it comes to your rotation. But you were basically in the same situation around the halfway point. It's just you were able to make shots and kind of extend a lead in Knoxville and get it, and then you played with the lead. In this one, you're playing from behind, and you could not string stops together. It got to a point there late second half where I just didn't trust Kentucky to get back-to-back stops, and that's the only way you're clawing out of a hole. They looked tired. Amari Williams got really, really tired there around the 7-8 minute mark. He just got a basket. I thought they had an advantage going to him in the post and getting to that right shoulder. Like Arkansas had no answer for that. But then you look and he scores, and it's a tight game, maybe 7 points, and he's got hands on his knees the entire defensive possession. And I was like, man, he's absolutely exhausted. Then you come with Garrison. So the rotation was off, yeah. And I think that when you're down 2 guards, if Butler's not able to play, you would hope that Kerr's there. If Kerr's out, you'd hope Butler is. Hopefully, the way it looked early, the rotation was they both were available. It changes guys. So he's clearly identified Colin Chandler, I think, as the best defender of the 3 freshmen. But when you look at it, I don't know how much confidence he has really in all 3 to be able to provide big game moments. And I don't think that was even kind of in the blueprint for the season. And unfortunately, they've had injuries. And that's the area of the roster that I think that has to get more ready immediately moving forward. You don't got to have the top 5, top 6 players in the country. But if you're going to go heavy portal, and they had to with this group, you would hope, your freshman class has some guys that are ready to step in defensively, offensively, and contribute. And they have had their moments, but their moments aren't as magnified when other guys are playing well. And when guys aren't making shots and you're needing that depth, you can't force that depth. Like, you can put them in the game, but you're maybe not getting the same productivity that you would get in other moments in other opponents, or with some of these guys that are also out with injury.
I think it's a 2-step conversation with this. I think when it comes to I personally have a hard time hearing the tired talk and the fatigue talk when we're at this stage of SEC play, where every team is banged up. Every team is dealing with their own depth and fatigue issues, and everybody's tired. But when we sit at the podium and have, talk about how, Jackson played 34, Otega played 31, Kobe played 29, Ansley 24, Amari 25 minutes for Amari Williams, who went for 22 and 11 with 3 assists. He was one of the best games that we've ever seen him in a Kentucky uniform. Talk about, well, our guys were just getting tired and this and that and this and that. And then you look at the Arkansas box score and see 38 minutes, Nelly Davis, 34 Adu Thiero, 34 Carter Knox, 37 DJ Wagner, 25 Big Z, even a guy who's known for not having the conditioning. Even he played the same amount as Amari Williams did. I don't want to hear that. Like, a guy who was coached by Rick freaking Pitino, who ran you until your legs fell off, does not need to be the guy saying my guys aren't. Again, it's a 2-step conversation, because we talked about Lamont. I need to get to that in just a second, but there is something to be said about the intricacies of the system, with so much more off-ball movement, and you're racking up miles quicker, more quickly in this offense. But as Steven so eloquently said in our own private group chat, the defense has to guard you too. They are running with you. It's not as simple science. There is more movement, but I can't hear that as an excuse. I can't. But there is also a very clear, in my opinion, concern with Lamont Butler. Like, you don't throw all of this stuff against the wall in terms of rotation, just trying to make Colin Chandler work. Great defensive minutes, not giving you a whole lot offensively. Where did Trent? All of those things being said, the verbiage of Mark Pope last night talking about Lamont Butler concerned me. Basically said, if it's my hunch that we're going to give him a go he's going to give it a go at some point. before we kind of decide if this is going to be a long-term situation. Kind of put it, we're going to see what the pain tolerance is, and if he's struggling through that, then we might need to shut him down. Kentucky will not win anything of substance without Lamont Butler, just point blank period. Like if we will have to totally lower the ceiling and what this looks like, and the floor is going down. I mean, Lamont Butler is the team MVP. You're not going to win a national championship with Lamont out. You're just not. That's where Colin comes in. That's why we kind of, missing the short-term stuff with Arkansas while trying to figure out if this trends that direction, we need to figure out what the long-term plan is.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. Like, not having Lamont is a significant kind of roadblock to your success. It'd be the same way too, like if you were to lose an Amari. I mean, you're seeing it with, Andrew Carr. Like this team was built, like obviously, the strength of this team at the beginning of the season was the team together and having so many pieces that you could be flexible with and kind of move around and do some different things. But unfortunate that they've been hit with some key injuries, and all of them kind of been in the backcourt there at one spot where your primary ball handler, 1 and 2, goes down. It forces other guys into minutes. Now, when it comes to fatigue, Amari Williams was tired last night. Like, it was clearly a point there in the second half where I was like, he is exhausted. And I'm telling you, the possession where he had hands on his knees when the defensive possession starting, and they ended up getting an offensive rebound and a bucket that I thought kind of broke Kentucky the rest of the way. Like, that was a huge possession. Pope gets him out instantly after the under 8 timeout. Garrison goes in, he gets the dunk early, and then you try to go back with Amari. But when it comes to fatigue, and I'm not in these practices, but when you get to a certain point of the season, I do think your practices get shorter. You watch a lot of film, your prep, and the way that you're prepping for league games. When you have guys out, I'm just wondering how much Mark Pope is thinking, are these practices able to have the same intensity that you had in the preseason, early season? No, because you can't go play on the road in Knoxville on Tuesday, come in and go all out on Wednesday, Thursday. There's an off day built in there somewhere. You go straight into prep. Like, is this something that maybe the conditioning is not there because he's maybe worried about that he only has so many guys that he can play that he's not wanting to roam into the ground? Now, this is where you would like for the depth of the freshmen to come into play a little bit, and they're getting valuable experience, and they will get better by playing. But, Colin Chandler was a guy that we didn't see in some big games when SEC play started. Colin Chandler is a guy we didn't see play a lot of minutes when Kentucky was getting key wins in the non-conference. Travis Perry. Now, Trent Noah, I would have liked to seen some Trent Noah run last night just to see, because I think when you're in this situation, you probably got to exhaust all your options, and I felt like that he had earned a spot to try to get this to maybe makes a shot for you. Maybe he comes up with a rebound or two for you. Just buy some minutes somewhere. But this is a tough spot to be in. It's just unfortunate that the loss can't just be an individual loss. It's a loss to Cal. It's a loss to Arkansas. We knew that we were getting to this point, but that was Arkansas' season. Just being honest here. Unless they do something and win the SEC tournament here in a month, that's their season. This can't be Kentucky's season. It can't be. That one moment last night was theirs. It can't become Kentucky's. And that's why now it's about moving on. You've turned the page. You lost. It's unfortunate, but you've got to find a way to regroup, because you can't be losing 4 or 5 or 6 in this league, Jack. Like, I mean, you'll find yourself underwater, and you're searching for air here.
As we saw with Arkansas starting, I think if we're looking just for the positives and what what that regrouping looks like, I didn't like, you talked about exhausting all your options. We heard Pope after the game say, somebody asked about, hey, like, why didn't we see more zone? We saw one possession of it with 3 minutes and change left with Kentucky down 12. Wasn't going to make a difference. Wasn't going to be the, magical swing. And Pope said, I don't think that going zone was the answer, but I do think that we should have been more aggressive and kind of been more choosy about when to just, go balls to the wall, just lay it all out there and go for the win. That's one thing. The Trent Noah thing, some of the woulda, coulda, shoulda stuff, I get that. But I get the sense that Pope is comfortable. I think they wanted this one. Obviously, I think the emotions really got to him. We just talking to the players, talking to Pope afterward. I think it was pretty obvious that this one beat him up. But they are, not missing the forest for the trees. Like I think they are looking at, we have to find what the long-term distance vision is for this, because if Lamont is out, we have to have Colin Chandler be ready. We have to have Travis Perry be, a consistent contributor and shot maker off the bench. We have to figure out what a Trent Noah at the 3, playing some type of expanded role will look like, what extended run Jackson Robinson at point guard looks like. If he is PG1 the rest of the way, what does that look like? I do think that this was again, I'm not a fan of how much this has become a theme, but the data collecting thing of might have to take our short-term lumps if it means we figure out what the long-term vision is. He kind of had the way he worded it was, it's like the start of a second season last night, where it's like, okay, this might be our group. If this is our core group, what does that look like? How do we win games with it? So it sucks as an emotional fan wanting that one more than just about any other game on the schedule. It sucks. I know BBN wanted that one, but I think Pope looks at it and says, hey, if we have to take a lump here or there and have a 5 of 6 game losing streak so we can turn that into, winning 5 of 6 to close out the season and be kind of firing on all cylinders going into the postseason, which is more important? You want to be playing your best ball going into March, but that doesn't make right now feel any better, where you do kind of feel like you're on the cusp of drowning if this thing gets away from you in Oxford. And then God forbid you lose South Carolina next Saturday.
Yeah, let's not even go down that path. But I mean, you're not trying to win the battle here, right? You're trying to win the war with this. And when you look at just these two teams, Arkansas got a great win last night. It's not even near enough to get them where they want to go. That's their second quad 1 win of the season. Kentucky still sits at 7 quad 1 wins. Like there's still so much to go wrong and still so much to go right on the other side to really flip anything. Now that's where I'm coming from, that Kentucky did enough in the non-conference early in this SEC season, Jack, to kind of build in the stretcher where they're 3-4. But when you look at the resume, it's still a good resume. Now you got to find a way to not let this thing kind of snowball on you. And when you have guys out, it can be very easy to let this snowball. And that's why regrouping, going on the road, getting one in Oxford is massive, the same way you went to Knoxville. Thankfully, they got the win in Knoxville. If they wouldn't have got that one, now we're talking about a 4-game losing stretch going on the road again. Those are the runs that can bury you in this league. So it's one moment. Like I said, it's unfortunate. Losing last night doesn't cost you a run at a Final Four, run a national championship, an NCAA tournament run, or an SEC tournament run. Arkansas might not even get there. So, you just can't put too much on one outcome. Take John Calipari out of this thing, and you lost to Arkansas Rupp. Yeah, I would have loved to have had that one. It's unfortunate because of the other factors that made it feel like a double loss, right? It's not just it weighs differently on the minds of BBN because that's the one that was personal. But you've beaten so many good teams. Now you got to find a way to regroup and go on the road and beat a team that's better than Arkansas.
Is there something to be said about this game just not being personal for Kentucky? The players, the staff, you talked to the players and there was just an apathy. There was sadness and frustration. I think Jackson Robinson hates that logo, hates the name on that jersey. That Arkansas, his time at Arkansas was a disaster. He, hates Eric Musselman with a passion. Different staff, all that. But this was a game that he personally had circled on his calendar. He played extremely well. Nothing taking away from Jackson, but there was just kind of this, it is what it is. Jackson even said, it is what it is after the game, where it wasn't this game wasn't going to be life and death the way. I mean, look, they run onto the floor for pregame warmups not a single camera on them, nobody even paying attention to them. The fans, students in that area are clapping and cheering for them on their way in, but every other camera and phone and spotlight is on that other tunnel waiting for John Calipari and waiting for Adu Thero and Big Z and DJ Wagner and fill in the blanks. Like, I think there was kind of this game mattered more to BBN than it did for the players and staff, and it sucks because the fans wanted this one so bad, but you just do kind of get the sense that they saw it as another game, take this one in stride, and figure out what the future looks like, figure out how to win in Oxford. What is this team's identity if we're going to be like, they're just kind of, they didn't have the emotions that we did. And it sucks, but you understand it, I think.
And honestly, it should mean more to the fans than it did the players. Like, those players have no tie. Outside of Travis Perry, there was no tie.
And we talked about it being a good thing potentially, but we didn't think of the kind of side of it too.
Yeah, but the other thing is those guys had to back it up, and they did. DJ made shots last night that we were hoping he would make a year ago. Pick and roll coverage. Z put some pressure on him last night with popping. And then you got Adu, who is just a warrior, man. Like, he's tough. Like, he's gotten better and better and better. Like, that's a really good player. When you look at them, I mean, you do kind of go, wow, this team probably shouldn't have lost a close game to Oklahoma. This team shouldn't have lost some of the other games that they lost. But at the end of the day, they're still 2-6 in the league and still have a lot to do. And I have more confidence that they're not going to get it figured out, that they're going to lose a game or two here pretty soon. And Kentucky, if they can get healthy, like, the health is now the storyline here. Can Kentucky get healthy? You asked me yesterday, was I concerned about the point guard spot? I wasn't in an individual moment or maybe one more game, but if this thing extends 3 weeks and there's no Lamont Butler, now I start to get concerned, especially when I see how fatigued Kentucky is getting. And Amari Williams takes some pressure off of a point guard because the offense flows through the 5. But you still need Lamont Butler. Like, Lamont Butler could have made a significant impact on that game last night. It changes your rotation. You don't win with Lamont. You don't have to lean as heavily into Colin Chandler, into Travis Perry. Travis did make a big 3, but you don't have to lean into those guys as much. Now, the flip side of this is those guys are getting valuable experience. And if you can get Lamont back, then your game experience in your rotation can get a spot, maybe a spot or two deeper. But the next game on the schedule, I'm telling you, is the biggest game. This one coming up is massive. Go to Oxford. You got to find a way to win not because of last night, but you're on a stretch of 3 or 4. Like, you're not in a good stretch right now. Then you got a Tennessee team that's going to be coming here pretty soon. That I know you got South Carolina sandwiched in between, but you got Tennessee coming in here who's made Florida look silly yesterday. A Florida team that only had 2 losses, one of them to Kentucky. Like, this league will devour you. And even the teams at the bottom half can compete. And then we knew that going in. Now, I picked Kentucky to win, by double figures. Obviously, Vegas had the line at double figures. Now, when you look at this, the one outcome I didn't see was Kentucky losing by double digits. I thought if Arkansas was winning it would be on the final possession of the game or maybe by 2 or 3 points. I didn't see them building a double-digit lead and Kentucky really not threatening that at all in the second half. But it was the flip of the Tennessee game. Kentucky made shots and played with the lead. This one, they couldn't get any momentum or stops to get there. There was no game pressure on Arkansas once it got second half.
Would that have flipped the reaction of the fan base, do you think, if it had come down to Adu Thero gets downhill and finishes a tough and-1 to, take a 2-point lead with 5 seconds left in the game to win? Like, would it have been different if it was kind of a emotional heavyweight battle, back and forth, and it was just, they got the shot to fall, they got the tough finish, they got whatever, one more big play than we did after a hard-fought showing for us. had it been, was it the simple fact that it was a double-digit win, and I mean they got punked on their own floor? Would that have changed just kind of the reaction and the fans kind of just jumping ship and saying, Pope's not the guy, and all the kind of holy crap reactionary takes?
No, it wouldn't have, because Kentucky could have lost this game by 1 or 100, and I feel like it was going to weigh the same on the hearts and minds of Kentucky fans, just because of who you lost to. And kind of, I wasn't the problem or this, but I thought Cal's response last night post-game, like, I know we've talked a lot about whether Cal says the right things or not, but I feel like when he was talking about that, you can't make this more than what it is, and he even said it, that he can't make it more than what it is, I thought that was really well said. And I don't think he was just playing into Kentucky fans or the media at all. I felt like that was a genuine response of, Mark Pope's doing a good job. And I feel like that he would have said the same thing had he lost last night. But I actually took that and was like, you know what? That is right. That's the message that I'm going to try to get out there today is you can't make it more than what it was. It was one game. Arkansas obviously can't hang their hat on that. If they do, they're going to end up looking up and they'll be 2-10 in the league. Kentucky can't hang anything there and look up and be 4-6, 4-7 in the league, because that can happen. Now it's about moving forward, but Kentucky has to get healthy. I said this a few weeks ago too. They have earned criticism. If you're going to go on the road and beat Tennessee in Knoxville, if you're going to beat Florida at Rupp Arena, if you're going to go on the road and beat Mississippi State, even though Missouri showed yesterday that's doable, if you're going to beat Duke in the early part of the schedule, Gonzaga doesn't look as good, but if you're going to win these games and have these moments, you've earned some criticism here, and the criticism should be about how Kentucky lost the game last night, not to who they lost. And I think that's probably where this thing lies. Like, yes, they lost the game. They didn't play well. They're not good defensively. I don't have confidence in them to string stops together. That's why it's so important. Now, this any coach can say this. It's important to play with a lead. For this team, I think it's maybe even more important now because they don't have all their guys, that if you get down 7, 8, 9, 10 points in the second half, it puts you in a crunch, because we do know fatigue is going to be a factor late with this group right now. And they just couldn't flip it back. In Knoxville, they were able to flip it and put some game pressure on Tennessee in their own building. Arkansas did the exact same thing to Kentucky. They flipped it and put game pressure on Kentucky, and Kentucky cracked.
Sean, defense is, I think, probably alongside the injury issues, I would say defense is probably the number one talking point. Biggest thing holding this team back from being as probably good as they should be and winning the games that they probably should. Dropped to 89. I know we said that we weren't going to do this every single show, but I feel like when you allow one of the worst offenses in the SEC to score 89, probably worth talking about them dropping to 89 in defensive efficiency rating. So is there a fix for that? Like, what does that look like, especially if Lamont Butler can't give it a go for an extended period? I mean, when you lose your stopper at the top of the key, the anchoring piece that sets the tone on that end of the floor, what does that look like? Because we saw Collins step up and show some good spurts defensively. Otega struggled a little bit. What does that look like? Kobe's a liability. It's tough. That's a really, really tough dynamic.
It is, and that's where the mixing in zone and things and timing it right. Like, you can't just say I'm going to play zone. Like, that's not how you fix it. But it's about situations and when you go to it. Now, I do think at times last night, obviously Arkansas shot the ball better than people expected. That's probably in the back of Pope's mind too, that, okay, we're losing Z on some pick and roll coverage. You can screen the zone too and have the same issues where you're leaving him open. DJ's made shots. I do think it's about mixing in those moments and those little pockets of where you go zone. We saw it so well in the win against Gonzaga, how they flipped it. Now, he tried to go to it late last night, but in that situation where to me, the thing with this team is they don't really do anything to facilitate easy points for themselves. It's not a team that turns you over a lot and gets out and runs in transition. It's not a team that's going to crush you consistently on the offensive glass and get some easy buckets, get into the free throw line and cashing in on a high number of attempts. Like they don't do really a whole lot of things there. That's where it comes down to. They got to shoot the ball well from three. And I think it's tied to defensive rebounding. Like defensive rebounding's got to be really, really good, especially if you're not a good defensive team. You've got to make sure that you secure a miss with two hands. This team will be fine. Obviously, year one with Mark Pope, like this is all, like I said, I can't come on here and say that you can't get too high with these wins and you can't get too low with the lows. And we've had plenty of weeks like this now where we've kind of got on here and celebrated the midweek victory or the weekend victory. And then you fall around on Tuesday night and you're like, man, what in the heck happened on the road at Georgia? Or what happened on the road at Vandy? But then you bounce back and you get a midweek win at Tennessee. Now what in the world happened at home against Arkansas? Like this is the SEC this year. You just got to survive it. And in year one, I always felt like it was going to be difficult, but I think Mark Pope has done a good job. Now, there are some questions about lineup rotations, where he's going, when he goes zone, things like that. But I mean, they got to figure it out, and they got to figure it out by Tuesday because that's a tough crowd that they're going to coming off a loss as well.
And I guess if you're looking for a bright side is that this team has responded. I really wish that it didn't come down to lose one to win one, lose one to win one. I mean, that's kind of been this team's MO. But if you are looking for a bright side going into a must win for, momentum purposes, I mean, like you said, 3 of 4 it sucks, but 4 of 5 is when you start going, like this thing is slipping. And it is just weird to have that number 8, top 10 road win in a hostile environment in Knoxville sandwiched between them, because that had us feeling like we were, world beaters. And then the season is just so weird. Just talking so much before it about how this team was going to win the games that they, should, and lose the games that they should. And it's been totally flipped. Like every single one has been flipped, but they have come up big in these moments. Does that make you feel better going into Tuesday, Sean?
Every time you doubt them, they kind of prove to you that they're going to pick up a big win. And that's those life preserver wins that I'm talking about, right? Where they've only had the 1-2 game losing streak here in the league. So, and that was obviously Alabama and Vandy. So, I mean, that's the 1-2 game. We kept talking about those pockets of games that you just can't lose games in a row. You got to find a way to get this one. Then you can come back home and you play a South Carolina team that I think you do have confidence against. And if you can get 2 this week, it'd be massive.
I think it's a non-starter. Like, I think getting a pod win this week is a must. Like, I don't think that there is any other scenario. I don't think you can give up either of these. Like, I think this truly is one of, we talked about the importance of pod wins and getting, trying to stack these. How many 2-win weeks can you stack up over the course of the season? And whoever has the most will, probably finish atop the league. Like, that's just how this is going to work. This pod is more important than any other we've had all season, if you ask me, in terms of what the end of season trajectory looks like, what the momentum and all those things. I don't think anything is more important than going 2-0 this week and kind of getting, continuing to build that momentum or regain it back after the, slip up.
It's hard to sustain success in this league, but it's very easy to sustain failure. Like in this league this year, like you lose one, it can easily turn into 2 or 3. It's hard to kind of regroup and go get a victory, especially in this league. It don't matter where you go, Jack. Like look at Missouri and these other teams that go get wins. Like, did anybody have Tennessee running Florida off the floor yesterday in Knoxville? I didn't. But how did they regroup from a tough loss to Kentucky? Like, you got to play desperate every single time that you take the floor. And obviously Arkansas played desperate last night, but I think their desperation was more from a personal, like, I'm trying to prove something here, that if they played with that type of grit and passion, and maybe even the staff coach with that same type of grit, they probably have more success. And maybe that's what ignites them. But it can't be what puts your fire out if you're Kentucky. And I think Kentucky's got to find a way to have that fire going into Oxford this week. And then let's see where it goes from here. Like, this thing is winding down now. Like you're in a spot where you're not going to win the league. Like Auburn's doing enough at the top of this thing. You've got tough games here every single night down the stretch. Sustain success and work on you. Get healthy. That is priority number one. You have got to get healthy. Whatever that health looks like, you've got to get it. And if this thing lingers with Lamont Butler, you do have concerns about what Kentucky can do beyond the regular season. But look, you got to find a way to go into Oxford, and you got to regroup. You got to watch the tape. You got to pull from it what you need, and then you just got to move on from it. And I would have said that even if Kentucky had won this game. You pull from it. You can't make that bigger than what it was. It was a massive moment in college basketball. It had a lot of emotions tied to it. Arkansas got it. But at the end of the day, that's a very small level of success. It doesn't make or break you as long as you don't allow it to break you. And that's where Kentucky's got to regroup from here. And that's where not having the emotional tie to it, I think it's easy for Kentucky to move on.
Yeah. I have a rant to get to, but before that, quick message from our friends at Club Blue. Club Blue is the official collective partner of the University of Kentucky. Club Blue was founded by UK fans strictly to support the NIL efforts at the University of Kentucky. Unlike most collectives, 100% of subscriber money and 100% of donor money goes directly to NIL. Club Blue charges no fees. Club Blue subscribers receive some amazing benefits like invitations to special events, meet and greets with UK athletes, signed merchandise, monthly giveaways, ticket giveaways, Club Blue merch, and more. Subscribe today at www.clubbluenil.com. You get to pick which sport you want to support when you sign up. Choose your sport and support with Club Blue. Also, the best time of the year is here, and the best app to bet college basketball is Circus Sports Kentucky. It's sports betting the way it should be, with high and transparent betting limits, the lowest holds, and exceptional customer service. It doesn't matter when they take the court, whether it's spread, props, futures are in-game. Circus Sports is the place to bet college basketball fun and bet like a pro from anywhere, anytime. Download your new bookie today at circusports.com. Sean, there was just that nervousness with me that Kentucky was a 10-point favorite. We talked about it in our 3-hour show yesterday before the game with Circus Sports. 10-point favorite. I just couldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. It just scared me to death. There's a lot of points on paper. It should have been a 10-point win, but when you factor in the emotions and all that, so I'm glad I held off. But I'm going to return the favor, whatever that looks like, whatever the spread opens at is against Ole Miss down in Oxford. I'm going to ride the wave. I'm going to trust the bounce back, and we're going to push our chips back in on the Cats. So we're going to whatever that looks like with Circus Sports Kentucky. We're going to continue to ride that wave. Must be 18 or older for Kentucky Problem Gambling Services. Call or text 1-800-426-2537. All right. What the hell was Reed Shepherd doing last night, dude? And what are these former players thinking? I get it. You have the relationship between a coach and a player is special. I understand. I don't fault you for supporting your former coach. I, on this show, have said I support my former coach, and he's not even my freaking coach, to be successful at Arkansas. I hope we kick his ass. Didn't. Frustrated me to no end that it didn't work out the way it should have last night. But so I get it. I know that you want to support your coach. But to walk in your trap, take over your trap, like Ty, buddy, that is your trap. You went to school here. This was your home. Arkansas didn't pay any of your bills. And again, I think there is just such a short-sighted, in-the-moment thing with these former players that when you have the benefit of Big Blue Nation, the most passionate fan base in college basketball, where when you sign up to play at the University of Kentucky, it's a lifelong partnership with this fan base. You get, hey, I'm Derek Anderson, and here's my latest business venture years and years down the road. BBN, will you support? Hell yeah, Derek Anderson. I'm going to, thank you for those positive memories. I'm going to continue to repay the favor year after year after year for the rest of your life. Go down the list and look at all the guys that now sell insurance and guys that don't even have professional platforms anymore that Big Blue Nation pulls in and says, hey, whatever you're doing in your life after basketball, I want you to know that we love and support you, and we'll help fund it. If you need me to buy t-shirts, if you need me to, buy cars from you over the lot next door, whatever that looks like, that's the value of Big Blue Nation. And these players that Arkansas fans are not going to be helping out Ty Washington and Davion Mintz and Jacob Toppin. Like, the ball is going to stop dribbling for them, and these short-sighted, dumb decisions to be like, suck it, Kentucky. It's like, what are you are isolating and turning off a fan base that is going to pay your bills when the thing that's paying your bills right now stops. What are you thinking? How could you? And like Reed Shepherd, the easiest layup of all time, the guy who will never have to pay for another meal, another drink, another anything in this state ever again. Picking a side, like, just so these decisions were just so short-sighted. And I get, I love that you support your coach. I love it. I support John Calipari. I love him to death. I said it before the show. I said it during. I said it afterward. But know what you're like. At least play to your audience. Like, at least have some type of an understanding of what you are doing in the long term. I was so shocked at the former Kentucky players that were dancing on Kentucky's grave last night. So dumb. And whatever the punishment is as a result of that, when you guys need BBN's support down the road for your cameos or whatever the hell you're going to do after your basketball careers, walk in your trap, take over your trap, bud. Hope it was worth it.
And Reed's thing, when you actually think about it, though, he has former teammates at Arkansas too. So, I mean, I'm sure there's something there, but like, I probably would have just went with a normal sweatsuit or just normal clothes.
Neutral.
And just not even made it a topic of conversation. Now, he probably would have been asked about it. All those guys would get asked.
And had he said the words that came out of his mouth and said, hey, I still support John Calipari, that's my coach, I'm still supporting the players that that they were my teammates, BBN would say, yeah, we agree. We understand. Yeah. Like, hey, we still have a soft spot for Z, although the booze, reflected something different, but it was competition. I get it. But to wear an Arkansas where you can get cropped from the waist up, yes, you were wearing Kentucky shorts, but the picture that went viral on the day of Kentucky versus Arkansas is you wearing an Arkansas shirt. That's the story.
Those guys also, I'm sure, feel some loyalty to the guy that helped get them to a professional career, to playing basketball. But yeah, that's a tough one. And I mean, Kentucky fans, obviously you have a right to be upset when you see something like that, when one of your own, but it just, if I had played here and I played for both, I probably wouldn't even worn either in that moment. But
wear a John Calipari shirt. Like,
you're going to always pull for your guy. And I fully expect when Kentucky's playing not Arkansas, they're pulling for Kentucky. But when John Calipari's playing Florida, whoever else, they're probably pulling for Arkansas. But it just added to it last night pregame when you see all that circulating on social media and stuff, and it was part of the one individual moment that this first game was always going to be the hardest from an emotional standpoint. It was going to put a crossroads for people that played for Cal. And, Reed's a little different, I guess, just because mom and dad were here, national champion here, Reed a great player here. And then obviously, like you said, even not just the crop, but you got the tweet of Arkansas on top, like Arkansas beats Kentucky and they were the shirt. Like, I mean, like,
Willie Cauley-Stein is the perfect example of somebody who gets it, where he saw the ball stop bouncing for him. He lost that that love and desire to play basketball. He dealt with his own demons and things like his story is sad and tragic and beautiful in so many different ways. And like the recovery and him kind of finding himself and finding just like a love for life again was like one of the coolest stories I can, in recent Kentucky memory. And the way he is said, I mean, has gone out of his way to say, hey, Big Blue Nation kind of helped pull me out of that dark place with the nostalgia and with the like, hey, we are forever indebted to you. Like the memories that you provided us and the Florida dunk and the, Louisville transition dunk, Montrez going, like those memories, those core deeply rooted memories are a lifetime, and he has leaned into that, and that's why I thought it would make a lot of sense. Tubby, shout out Tubby. I'm glad that he was the why. He deserved it. Love that guy, but that's why it made sense for Willie to be the why, where he has been outspoken about his support and love for John Calipari and his respect, but said, hey, I went to the University of Kentucky. I'm a Wildcat. I'm a Wildcat first and foremost. I want John Calipari to do well, but not against my team. And I think that's how most of these players, it was really revealing. It was just very telling last night, seeing kind of just we knew it was going to happen. I mean, we saw PJ Washington at Arkansas's facilities in workout gear with, Cal is that type of guy. He's a Hall of Famer. He's the Godfather. He's, people play here for John Calipari. Totally understand. But also, you have the most passionate fan base in college basketball on your side. Throwing that in the garbage is a pretty dumb business move, if you ask me.
Let's let an NCAA tournament run happen. Let's see where guys are when that happens. Like, I mean, it wasn't just those. I mean, you named some, like Ashton Hagans was another one last night. Obviously, like there were a lot of guys, but there's one thing that is for certain. And you read thread, you read the comments on here. The honeymoon's over.
I think that's fair.
That's the official thing now that you can say the honeymoon's over. Now, when you lose, you're going to be criticized more. And in the beginning of this thing, it was we're doing a lot of good things. Let's just be patient. Trust Hope and Pope. You lose to John Calipari, you lose to Arkansas. You've got fans that are rightly upset, yes, because they did not want to lose to John Calipari. It wasn't about Arkansas. They didn't want to lose to John Calipari. You have every right to be upset. But what's happened now is just there's more criticism with this one than there have been others, and we knew that, and that's okay. Like I said, they've earned the right to be criticized. When you have success, you earn some criticism, and Kentucky's had a lot of success this season. But we've now flipped the page, and this is officially now, in my opinion, in my mind, this is all Mark Pope's program. And now you don't have to walk this line of, do I criticize this after a loss? Do I praise this? Now you can fan, and I feel like everybody can kind of fan the way that they want to fan. That you still got to have some patience with where this program is and where it's going, because year one was always going to be the hardest. But he has put together a really good job, or a really good roster, done a really good job. That comment threw me off when I read it because I saw
it's funny seeing all the
Hey, our numbers are great. We have so many other fan bases, man, that want to pop in here and enjoy the show because they don't get the same quality with their fan bases. So.
And the cool part is the 50 Arkansas fans that are in here or whatever. If the number of fans, it adds up to their total IQ. Like if you add them all together, like the fifth, it's great. I mean, good. I'm really glad for you guys. I'm proud of you that you guys have something to cheer for instead of just bottom of the barrel misery game in and game out. Like, congrats. Like you guys clearly wanted this one more than anything, and to prove that old ball coach still got his fastball. Congrats. I mean, good. I'm proud. I'm proud that you guys have something to cheer for, and that you're spending your Sunday afternoon with us, and paying our bills by watching this and liking and getting the engagement up. I mean, I take zero offense to anything that you guys are saying, and because it's directly putting money in our pocket. So thank you. I appreciate it. And We'll continue. Stay on every single. If you want to watch with us every single game through the highs and lows, just make sure that when the wins stack back up, make sure that you're a part of that as well. I want to make sure that you get to celebrate the good times with us as well, because those are fun. Really, those are fun with us too.
Do you wish there was a return game?
Oh hell yeah! And I have gone all in on a rematch in SEC tournament. Like I at first after the game ended, I said, "Oh, I'm glad that we got that behind us. I'm glad that we don't have to kind of that took a lot of emotional energy for the week. I mean, we've done 5 freaking shows in 5 days, but there is a part of me that now, after losing the way we did, it was run it back. Like I want to run it back tomorrow if we could." And SEC tournament, the event that is so hilariously the one that John Calipari has minimized, and one of the biggest gripes that Kentucky fans had with him in recent memory is how he has basically said that event, poof, doesn't matter. Although now that you guys aren't going to make the NCAA tournament, that is going to be your only path to the NCAA tournament. So maybe you guys will care. But we've also seen that story with the COVID year when, one and done in that one as well. But I am all in on a rematch in Nashville. Like I want this to happen. I want the energy. I the best version of BBN is in Nashville. The gripes that some people had about fans sitting on their hands late in the second half and not willing, Kentucky across the finish line with the fans knitting in the lower level. Like I get those. We'll see the most passionate, energetic 40 minutes worth of the best version of BBN down in Nashville. Set it up, run it back, tip the ball off. I'm good for it.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it? It'd be fun to get it one more time and not. I'd actually like it to not be at Rupp Arena. But you're right. That one yesterday, like we've all circled that one yesterday. We were all getting to this point in the timeline. And now, even though they lost it, it'd been nice to have won it. I'm just ready to move on. But you're going to see them again. And maybe it does happen in the SEC tournament where you can be the one to kind of end the season and, send them home.
Oh, this chat. I don't want to end this show. We're just starting to kind of get,
You said 5 shows.
Toss some hands.
You said 5 shows. We've probably done the equivalent of 8 because yesterday counted for 3.
That was
a long one, man.
We were at Zach's house afterward, leading up to the game. Where we had a couple hours to kill. Had to knock out a couple posts before we headed over to the arena. And Zach and I both sat down, and we were just like, "Holy hell, man! We've gone through a whole day, and tip off isn't for another 3 hours." We were just like, "Damn, man! Like, I don't even know how we're gonna make it to this 9 p.m. tip off, and like the energy and It really was weird. Now that we know it's behind us and we can just kind of talk about the night and the pageantry and all that stuff, I blacked out once I got to the arena, and everything just kind of happened so fast. Where it was, okay, well here's Big Z and Adu coming on the floor. We got to film that. Oh, well here's Chuck Martin and here's Chin Coleman and Bruiser Flint, and here's Chris Willard, all the familiar faces that have been there. Oh, Walker Horn's coming out to go say hi. It's like one thing after the other, quick, and then you get the oh crap, John Calipari's coming out right now. Oh, here's the starting lineups. Oh, the ball is tipped. It all happened I got to the arena 2.5 hours beforehand and just felt like it just poof, just disappeared. And then the game happened, and I looked up. First half, there was 6 minutes left. And I was just like, whoa, it feels like we just tipped off a minute ago. And then we get to the second half, and then it just weirdly went from 14 minutes to feels like it's been 20 minutes in my head, and it's 11 minutes left on the clock. And you're like, what is going on? It was just the time moved so differently and weirdly last night, and it's like I blacked out that whole 3-hour window of the get there, the drama and all that fun stuff, and then the start of the game, and then the time didn't slow down until we got to the last 5 minutes of the first half and all of the second half. It was a really weird night.
Yeah, it was. It was a weird day, weird night. Glad it's over. Wish you could change the result. You can't. But you got to prepare to to move forward here. And then if you get that matchup again in the SEC tournament, it'll be a fun one. But we'll see where Kentucky goes from here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure. Some fans said that KSR said this was the worst loss in program history. You clowns said this is our worst loss ever. What are we talking about? This is not even in the top 20 of worst losses of all time. Like, I don't know where you got that, Brother Bill, but take a hike. All right. That was a good one. That was fun. Appreciate all of you guys tuning in for a little therapy session. Feeling terrible after last night, but I'm glad to get it behind us. Run it back in March. I'm in NCAA tournament. Come on. Let's be real about what Arkansas is doing. SEC tournament. We'll run it back. And life is good. It's not life and death. The ball's not going to stop bouncing for this team, and we're not just going to throw our hands in the air and panic and throw this magical season away because of one ugly loss. Sucks in the moment. Mark Pope is the guy for the job. He's great at what he does. He's going to turn this thing around, and just get healthy. Priority number 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 10, and then maybe like 11 through 20. We'll say let's get the defense figured out and let's run it back. It'll be a fun time. Sean, thank you very much. Where can fans find your coaching work?
At _ Coach S. Smith.
What got any big games coming up?
Yeah, we moving to back into district play Tuesday night, senior night. We play at home. We got a big win yesterday. Trailed the whole second half and then kind of turned it on late and got another good win. Doing a lot of good.
Talk about a good day for you. I mean, until the night, the evening, but like grinding away 3 hours on a stupid podcast and get to follow that up with a big time win. So you deserve a little pat on the back. You got the best version of Sean Smith yesterday.
I feel like I did. Having a good time with our guys, man. I love what we're doing, and we got a great team that just wants to keep getting better and better. And it's been to this point, it's been a very fun year for us, and hopefully we got hopefully 2 months to play.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully Kentucky has. Let's see, we got two more months to play. We got a lot of fun stuff to get to. A lot of fun up ahead. You can find my work at Jack Pilgrim KSR. Go subscribe to KSR Plus. Make sure you're subscribed right here. All the Arkansas fans, if you're going to waste your time and your energy in this chat, you might as well subscribe. Keep this train moving. We'll accept any and all hate and toxicity coming our way. So thank you. Appreciate each and every one of you. Go Cats.